Okay, so good morning. Today we need to talk about consumer behavior. Is that right? Is that what it says in the syllabus? Is that what it says? I think so. So this is largely predicated on something that we call rational actor theory. So rational actor theory, this goes back to when we talked about strategy and goals, says that people pursue goals. Now I want you to consider this question in your groups, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes to answer this question. I want you to type it up. So if you have a laptop, use your laptop, type up your answer. You're going to have a well-constructed paragraph. Is it possible to pursue an irrational goal in a rational manner? So you're going to do this in your groups. If you don't have a laptop, you can use a tablet, you can use your iPhone, and you're going to submit your answers to Dropbox on D2L. So I have created a D2L Dropbox. So if you go to your D2L folder, so we're going to try an experiment in here. It'll say, if you go to Dropboxes and folders, it will say rational actor, and there should be a folder there for you, for your group. So we're going to discuss this idea. Is it possible to pursue an irrational goal in a rational manner? Your answer should be a well-written paragraph in your group, so we're going to do it in class. Isn't that nice? You don't have to do a whole paper and submit it. We're going to do it in class and submit it to Dropbox, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about this idea of rational actor theory. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that. Get in your groups. If you don't have any electronic device that you can type your answer into a Word document and submit it to the Dropbox, then you can come up and you can use this computer to type your answer in after you get it completed. So I'll give you 10 minutes to do that, and we'll talk about your responses. And you get to be on YouTube. Your group leaders get to be on YouTube today. All right, so has everybody got their answer that you're going to send? Yep, you don't have to submit it yet. You just have to submit it by the end of class, but do you have your answers? But we can talk about it. You got your answers? Yes?
Yes.
All right, let's start with 9 Diaz. Who's your spokesman to read your answer? Well, you can summarize it. Stand up so we can see who you are.
Hi. We just put basically like the irrational goal would be something kind of far-fetched, like not attainable. And the example we used would be like setting a goal such as like being CEO for a large corporation like Apple or like Coca-Cola or something. That's irrational, but we could go about trying to achieve it like in a rational way. So we could like take the steps necessary to do it, work hard and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's probably you're not going to end up there, right? Like there's only one person that can do that. So the more rational way about going about your business would be kind of like set the bar a little lower and something more obtainable and just realistic, I guess. So
Okay.
We just kind of built on that.
So you think it's irrational to pursue the goal of becoming CEO of Coca-Cola?
Yeah, unless there's one person that's.
Have you ever heard of a woman named Anna Wintour? She's the CEO of the chief publisher of Vogue. And her father said, Anna, you need to be publisher of Vogue magazine when she was a kid. And guess what she became? Publisher of Vogue.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that's an irrational goal.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's a highly rational goal. Maybe implausible, but highly rational.
yeah. Well, we kind of said like the people. There's got to be someone to do it. So for some people, it might be rational, but looking from like another perspective, it might be irrational.
Okay. I think it's a highly rational goal. It may be a difficult goal,
Yeah.
but I think it's a highly rational goal. So I guess what you're saying is that it's not possible to have an irrational goal pursued in a rational manner.
Yeah, it's totally subjective. Like it's based on opinions, individuals' opinions.
Okay, all right, very good. ADT. Who's ADT?
We put that it is possible to pursue a rational goal in a rational way. Many people thought that it was impossible to put someone on the moon, but I'm pretty sure Russia and the U.S. would probably make a difference on that. And our example would be, for example, a good golfer has a goal to break 70. It's completely rational for a good golfer, but for the average once-a-year corporate outing golfer, that goal is not plausible. And that you should always make your goals smart, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound.
Okay, very good. But I think that's a rational goal, to put a man on the moon. And, I mean, it may have seemed irrational, but the laws of physics say that we can achieve that goal, right? And we did. Unless you're one of the doubters who doesn't believe. So, again, I think that's a rational goal. All right. Let's see. What else who else do we have? Business Architect Solutions. Did you all have time to come up with, since we were forming your group? Hold on. Let me get the camera focused on you.
All right, so the thesis could be that it's very possible to pursue a rational goal in a rational manner or substantive. Example would be Hitler.
That is the classic example.
He had
Yeah.
a very rational goal of exterminating the entire Jewish race, making a superior race to say. And although that was irrational, he went through it in a very concise and systematic way. He had, the Gestapo to go and capture the Jewish people. He had railways to transport the Jewish people. He had concentration camps to contain them. And then he had gas chambers to eliminate them.
Yeah,
And he had ways to dispose of them.
Yeah, that is the gold standard answer right there. That it is completely possible. So, you guys, how'd you come up with that answer?
How did I come up with that answer?
You-
We collaborated together and came up with, we thought about NASA, putting a man on the moon, which is a very irrational goal at the time, but then we also brainstormed a little bit, came up
We
with.
brainstormed while you were still handing out things.
Oh, okay. All right. So that is the prime example. Yes, that is the number one example. Who else? Let's see. We've got District 3.
Yeah.
Who's District 3?
We said that it is possible to achieve an irrational goal in a rational manner, such as a person born out of the United States becoming president, instead taking steps to become such a governor like Arnold Schwarzenegger or in a manner like that.
Oh, so you think Ted Cruz is irrational? Where was Ted Cruz born? Canada. That's what Donald Trump is harping on. That he's not a natural born citizen. I don't know what that means in the Constitution, by the way. What natural born? Is anybody unnaturally born? I'm not sure what that means. Okay, so you said that if you want to become governor and you're not a native born citizen of the United States, or you want to become president, that would be an irrational goal. And I guess you could go about pursuing that rationally. How could you go about pursuing it rationally?
Taking the steps of what it takes to be an example manner. I don't know.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting example. So we've got Diversified Inc. Where's Diversified?
We said yes, it is possible to pursue an irrational goal in a rational manner. Goals are determined by goal setting and putting a plan of action into motion. Anyone can work towards a goal that they may seem unattainable. Our first example that we decided upon was preparing for a zombie apocalypse. There are groups of people that actually go out and buy guns and cars and go to boot camps and stuff to prepare for that, even though it may never actually happen. The idea of desire and subject impulses are defined as irrational. Irrational versus rational assumptions can further be exemplified in our team member, Javon, whose father thought it was irrational to attend or ever be eligible to attend college. However, Javon is still pursuing an education and is succeeding. Subjectivity is a major contribution factor to whether or not the goal can actually be achieved.
Okay, very good. I think that's, I like your example about the zombies, because is there such a thing as a zombie? But I mean, if you believe that there is, you could have these delusions. You could be a paranoid schizophrenic, right, who's not rational, but you could take steps to prepare yourself against zombies by doing what? Hoarding water, living in the basement, sealing yourself up in a room that is self-contained. Okay, all right. Let's see. So we did, was that Diversified or District 3? Was that Front and Furious?
Hi, everyone.
All right, stand up. You can look at the camera.
Yes, it is possible. Let us begin by defining a few terms. Even though people can have their own truth and everything is relative, for the sake of this argument, let us agree on some definitions. When it comes to the aspects of a rational goal, they include but are not limited to being measurable, attainable, time-bound, specific, and realistic. For example, if one of our group members wants to be the strongest person in the world in a week's time, this is a goal that is able to be pursued in a rational way, but the goal itself is irrational. Though the goal is time-bound and measurable, it is not realistic for anyone in our group. One may be able to consume protein shakes, go to the gym every day, but a week is not enough time to be the strongest person in the world. People can pursue an irrational goal, but that does not mean they will attain it. Pursuing an irrational goal in a rational way does not guarantee success.
Okay, that's a good example. Yeah, if you say I'm going to be the strongest man in the world, that you might be able to do that, but in a week's time, yeah. But you've got a goal that is definable, measurable. It's just not attainable. Okay, so that's a really good example. Global marketing.
We would guess that it's possible to pursue an irrational goal for rational means. A man who wants to be immortal can pursue that through biology, anatomy, health, nutrition, but he'll never be able to obtain it. He can pursue the impossible through attainable means.
Okay, all right. Good example. So that was, what was that? Global marketing. Linda Friend. Very good answer there.
Okay, so our example was already taken, so I'm going to kind of think on my toes.
Okay, good deal.
Moon also, but I guess you could think like Stephen Hawking and what happened to him, that it could, lots of people could have said it was irrational for him to be able to write a book that far into his disease, and he still did it because he worked with his technology. Like they got the chair for him and the little clicker and everything, so, and he still managed to do it.
Okay.
So it is still possible to go about it in a rational manner, even though everyone else thinks it's irrational.
Okay.
Something like that can still happen.
Okay, I think that's a pretty rational goal. I think it's highly rational. But okay, very good. Good example. I like the thinking on your feet thing. Stronger together.
We also believe it was possible to pursue an irrational goal in a rational manner. We went with the example of graduating with a 4-year degree in 2 years. First step would be taking current classes in high school. So by the time you got to college, you could have 24 hours accomplished. Then in intersessions, you could accomplish 12 hours. And then in the summer, you could also finish 12 hours. And then as long as you take 19 hours in each regular semester, you can complete a 124-hour degree in 2 years.
Okay, so is that really irrational, or is it just a really, really hard goal?
You have other things going on in your life, it's pretty rational to take that on.
Okay, so you're saying that it's because you might get sick, something could happen. You could get in a car wreck and have to miss class, and that would be bad. Okay, so maybe it is rational. Is there an absolute bright line between irrational and rationality? I'm not sure. Are you either one or the other? I don't know. Okay, very good. Is it TO Technology?
We said yes, it's possible to pursue a rational goal in a rational manner. The goal of achieving perfection is considered unattainable and therefore irrational. However, rational steps can be taken in pursuance of such a goal. For example, trying to put 3 well-balanced meals on the table for everyone in the world is a rational and unrealistic and immediate future. Yet starting food drives in the food banks to start a collection for people in need is just one of the many steps you can take towards this goal.
Okay, all right, very good. Team Sunshade.
So we put that it is possible to have an
to be able to fly a plane. Yes, now we know that by physics and everything, we can fly a plane. But at that time, it was an irrational goal that they solved in a rational manner.
Okay, that's a good example. Yeah, what is rational today, or what seems perfectly rational today, may seem irrational at another. So there may be some temporal aspect to this as well. And I think that's an important thing, to recognize this temporal quality that we might have. Okay, let's see. Was that Team Sunshade?
Yes.
Okay, we've got Team Where?
We also think that it's possible to have an irrational or go about it in a rational manner. We also use the example of graduating in a 2-year time by taking the summer classes and doing a full course load. It's kind of just about having a reasonable plan on how you're going to go about it. I think kind of what makes a goal irrational is like the time limit that you put on it. I mean, you can do everything you can to try and accomplish that goal just as long as you have like a rational timeline on it.
Okay, all right, very good. Good answers. The correct answer, yes, is that you can pursue an irrational goal in a perfectly rational manner. And the classic example is of course, Nazi Germany under Hitler. So I'm going to turn this off for 1 second. So yes, the answer is you can pursue an irrational goal in a rational manner. This is what we might call low-level irrationality. And so one of the things that we have to think about in consumer behavior is, are we pursuing irrational goals? And of course this ties in with our ideas about ethics and sustainability. A lot of people would argue that what we are doing as marketers is creating irrational wants and desires in people, that they want things that they don't necessarily need. It's no longer about satisfying needs and things that we should want, but it's about satisfying irrational wants and needs. And so again, this is how this ties in, and that we have to connect these various disparate chapters together into sort of a collective whole. Now, what does rational act or behavior look like? Well, it looks like the steps that your text talks about on page 110. So it starts with a problem recognition, or a need, or a want, or desire. And then what are you going to do? Well, you're going to start thinking about information that you're going to need to pursue the goal. I'm one of these people that I consider myself to be a rational, comprehensive person. And so when I make major purchases, I go out and I start a notebook. And I gather all of the information I need in a notebook on consumer reports and things like that, so that I can compare things and start shopping and pricing things online. And then, after you gather your information, what are you going to do? Well, you evaluate your alternatives. You weigh it. Think about the decision to buy a microwave. What kinds of decisions and what kinds of information are you going to need to know about buying a microwave? The wattage, the power. What are you going to use it for? Are you actually going to use it to cook? When I was growing up as a kid, microwaves were these really expensive boxes that didn't work very well. Why didn't they work very well? Anybody remember the old microwaves? The first microwave my family had, I think it cost almost $1,000. It was in the very early ages. It had these dials on the face of it, and there were two dials. One was for the power, and one was for the time. So you turn the dial for the time. And it didn't have this thing in the center of it that you all have now that what? Rotates. So what happened with food in the old first microwaves? Yeah, half of it would be boiling hot and the other half would still be frozen because it wasn't rotating it in the microwave. So they've come a long way. So how are you actually going to use the microwave? What are some of the product features that offer benefits in microwaves today? Okay, they've got a popcorn setting. They've got dethaw settings. They've got all these things that you can do that make it more convenient for you to use the device. It's got a clock so that you know what time it is. They've got the microwave I've got at home now has a stopwatch timer, so you can use it in your kitchen, not just as the microwave, but you can use it as a timing device for other utilities that you have, like the oven. If you need to bake something and you need a time watch or a stopwatch, it will do that. So there are all of these things that you should think about and consider in the purchase of a very basic product like a microwave. So you're going to evaluate all of these information that you get. You're going to talk to your friends. You're going to go online. You're going to look at Walmart. Then you're going to make the purchase decision. And then you're going to have what after the purchase decision? Maybe. Yeah, buyer's remorse. And you're going to evaluate the decision afterwards to decide whether or not you made a good decision. And in the future, you'll use that information in making future purchases. So the next time you buy a microwave, if this one turns out to be an ungodly disaster, you'll know what? Yeah, if it's GE, I'm not going to buy a GE microwave again. Now let's consider this example. Several years ago, one of my friends was looking for a car. And he had driven, my father had a Maxima, a Nissan Maxima. And we went out to visit my dad. He lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And my friend drove my dad's car. He let us take his car and go. And he drove his car. And my brother had a Maxima. And he really liked it. And so he was looking for a new car. And he did all of this research online about, the performance specifications of the Maxima, the prices and things like that. And he went down and he bought a new Maxima, and the car turned out to be an absolute lemon. I mean, from the word go, it had all kinds of problems with it. And he says to me after that, he said, that was the worst decision I ever made. Now, is that the worst decision he ever made? I said, no, it's not. It's not a bad decision. You based the decision on a very rational analysis of these alternatives that you had. You knew you needed a car, you'd driven the car, you did research on the car, you found the car that you could afford and that you liked, and you went out and bought it. The results turned out poorly. But the decision-making process was good, wasn't it? So we can't always look to results as to whether or not the decision-making process behind what we're doing is good. Now, if we think of this in terms of a Hegelian dialectic, what we might have is we'll start out with a thesis, which is that people pursue goals. That's called rational actor theory. And in the pursuit of these goals, they take steps to achieve the goals. So if we start with a thesis of rational actor, people pursue goals, and what we've seen in this little exercise that we did is the goals themselves may be irrational, but you can go about pursuing those goals in a very rational, comprehensive manner. You can achieve those goals. Maybe even irrational goals can be achieved. The classic example again is Hitler. He had a completely very irrational goal, but he did a lot to work to achieve that goal. There is an antithetical theory to rational actor. And we might call it irrational actor theory. And what irrational actor theory says is that this model that your book presents is not the way people actually make decisions. That not only are we not pursuing necessarily rational goals, but we don't act in a rational manner at all. We act in very predetermined ways to stimuli. And that's one of the things that, again, this is tying back to that first test period, Martin Lindstrom argues in the book Biology, is that people will say one thing and their brain patterns show something else. Now let's think about this. So rational actor theory is predicated, and marketing is predicated. The foundational disciplines of marketing, I've told you this before, are psychology, which is consumer behavior, and economics. And rational actor theory largely comes from economics. So I make merciless fun of both of these disciplines in my classes, because economics is the dismal science, and I don't even think it's a science, because they're never good at predicting future outcomes. When economists tell you, they said oil, there were a bunch of economists that said oil would never drop below $50 a barrel again. What are we headed towards today? We're headed towards $10 a barrel oil. What is the price at the gas pump? You can get gas in Oklahoma City at $1 today. There are places that are selling it, and it may be under $1. So I don't think economists are very good at predicting things because they always want to reduce everything down to 2 variables and then explain away the world. And I think they're good at explaining it after it happens, which is not really a science. That's called history, which may be a worthy subject, but it's not necessarily a science. And psychology, which is the closest thing to witchcraft we teach on a college campus. So those are the 2 foundational disciplines of marketing, and I make merciless fun of both of them. And what irrational actor theory says, and consumer behavior is this combination of watching people's behavior in psychology and classical economic theory, which says that people pursue these goals to maximize their utility, and irrational actor theorists say, no, they don't. People don't act rationally, and they don't do this. This model doesn't really work. I want you to think about this. Think about how many decisions you make in a day that you don't even think about.
This book, Mindless Eating, is director of Food and Brand Lab at Cornell University, and he's here with me, and we are going to experience mindless eating. What exactly is mindless eating?
Well, mindless eating is eating more than we think we're eating and enjoying a lot less than we otherwise would.
You mean we can't keep track of how much we're eating?
The typical person makes 200 decisions about food a day. If you were to ask them, they'd believe they made about 15. But in reality, just for breakfast, they decide what cereal to have, whether to pour 1 bowl or 2 bowls, skim milk, whole milk, to have a refill. There's 12 decisions that are made before you even take a bite.
Wow, okay, well, we've got some food here. What might be influencing me or you to eat more than we think we should?
Well, let's look at how much we're going to like it. I can guarantee you're going to like this a lot more than you like this, because this is poached eggs on English muffins. This, on the other hand, is eggs Florentines. Described that it has Norwegian salmon. It's described about just reading that description off the menu is going to make your expectations that you're going to like the food higher. Having those expectations higher is going to make your taste buds obediently follow.
So even if it doesn't taste good, if I'm impressed by the description, I'll eat more of it?
You may not eat more, but you're going to like it a whole lot more. I mean, one thing we found, even with wine, if we give people wine that says it's from California, they enjoy the food a lot more that they're eating with it. If we tell it's from North Dakota, if you give the same wine, they don't like the food as much, they end up finishing earlier, and they end up not making reservations very soon.
Now, one obvious thing here is that we have really approximately the same meal. I've got a few onions you don't have, but your plate is about twice as big as mine. What does that do?
What happens is that we find that when people serve themselves onto a bigger plate, they end up putting a lot more food on, typically about 30% more, because that looks like a really nice big meal. This looks like barely an appetizer. In fact, to make these plates look similarly full, I mean, I'm going to have to add a few more potatoes. Now, I think it's looking a little bit better now.
So we make judgments based on whether there's empty spaces there?
Yeah, it's a very subtle bias. What it does, it suggests to us what the appropriate amount is to eat. And regardless of how tuned in we think we are eating decisions, we will serve 25 to 35% more under a larger plate than we will a small plate.
That's a huge amount, though, 25 to 35%.
It's unbelievable. In some cases, with some foods, it can be up to about 150 calories more per serving, which over the course of a year, 150 calories more each day is 15 pounds heavier at the end of the year.
Boy, that's supersizing, taken to a different dimension. Okay, so what else? I mean, this looks very straightforward to me. Food on a plate, sure the sizes are different, but what else might be operating here?
Well, something else that's operating is anytime we think something.
If I start eating.
Oh, man,
Mindlessly.
yeah, that's right. That's right. One other thing that's happening is anytime we see something that we believe is healthy, there's a health halo that follows that entire food, and typically makes us believe it has fewer calories, and it typically makes us overeat. Like I wanted some tomatoes. Look at this. So I got some sauteed tomatoes. Now I'm going to believe this is an incredibly healthy thing for me to eat. And I guess relative to the French fries, it is healthy. But this is going to have a whole lot more calories than you think, because what's going on is there's a basic sort of halo that surrounds anything that we believe is good for us.
Like a tomato.
Like a tomato. How could a tomato be unhealthy? Oh, well, I guess if it's cooked in its own weight of olive oil.
Now, you don't just sort of look at people operating restaurants, but you do experiments in your lab. Can you give me a sense of the kinds of things that you do?
What's amazing?
Well, of course. Now,
Well, one of the things we do.
should I only have like one strip?
So that I can have the rest. That's right. And one of the things we do in our lab is set up with one of the mirrors, it's set up with hidden cameras, it's got scales underneath the table. And what we can do is we can do experiments to see how the lighting affects how much somebody eats, how the number of people who are eating influences how much they eat, how candlelight makes them eat more, and things like this. And what it enables us to do is to tell people what cues they can change in their own house so they can eat less and enjoy food more.
Now, but the title of your book is Mindless Eating. Is it really possible for people to sort of step back from that and say, I'm being influenced by all these things that you mentioned in the book, I can correct that? Or is it just too easy to fall into the same old habits?
It's really easy to fall into the same habits. So that's what the key thing to do is just to reorganize, what we call re-engineer your house, so that you don't have to make these decisions all the time. So that you're eating off the smaller plates, you're pouring in tall, skinny glasses and short, white glasses. You're moving the candy bowl 6 feet away from you rather than leaving it on your desk. That's the sort of thing that, of course, is very easy to do. It's a mindless solution to this.
So, Brad, but what if I'm not in that controlled environment at home? I'm out in a restaurant. What should I do?
Well, in addition to your entree, you can eat one other item. You can have an appetizer, you can have a side dish, you can have a dessert. You can't have all three.
Okay, I'll take it seriously. Thanks, Brad. Dr. Brian Wensick is director of the Food and Brand Lab at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. He's also author of Mindless Eating, Why We Eat More Than We Think.
So what do you think?
You're about to watch this.
So what we might end up with here, and your text talks about this, one of the things that we think about is the perceived risk of the purchase decision-making process. So I think what we might end up with is a synthesis theory which says that we have moderate rationality. What does this mean? Well, when you're hungry and you walk past the vending machine, and you all have seen the Snickers commercials from the Super Bowl ads, right? You grab a Snickers, and maybe that's not irrational, that's just a reactive purchase. And you're not necessarily acting rationally. If you're acting rationally, what would you do for your hunger? Rather than grab the Snickers, you might grab something healthier, right? But you're just going to react. But if you have a lot of risk, you might react differently. So where would you see rational actor theory? Maybe in things like the purchase of a house. Right? You're going to really take time to do this process that the text talks about because there's a lot of risk involved in the purchase of a house or the getting of a 30-year mortgage or the buying of a car. But at other times, we are just reacting to things. And so I think the level of risk and the calculation of the level of risk increases whether or not we act in maybe a rational or an irrational manner. Do you all have any questions? Yes, sir.
Questions about this topic or questions overall?
If you have questions overall, you need to see me because they have a speaker coming in at 12:30, so I'm going to have to wrap up. Be sure and submit this to the Dropbox. This group right here, I'll get your group set up hopefully. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, or again, I get a voluminous amount of emails, so feel free to text if you have a question and I don't respond to your email.